Time now for the voice of the land on the Big Play Network with your hosts, Kevin Arnold and Always Positive Jay.
We are so honored and privileged to have Mekka Don on the show. You may have seen him on Twitter at Mekka Don Music. On Twitter, rapper, lawyer, football player, Ohio State lover, Columbus lover. Mekka, thank you so much for taking some time. I know that you're in the car. You had some noise going on in the house, taking some time in the car away from the kids to join us here tonight.
Sure, no problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
Now, I got to start with, because I saw, I follow you, so like all your tweets always come up, and I saw that you would visited with Gene Smith the other day along with Chris Carter, and then when his retirement announcement came out, it kind of took you by surprise. Was there not any single sort of indication as you guys were kind of talking on Monday that this could be coming out in the news?
It's crazy you asked me that question because Chris and I were talking this morning, and we were just talking, and literally as we were on the phone, the breaking news came in that Gene had retired, and so we were both just on the phone, silent with each other for like 30 seconds, like what, like. But as we started to replay the conversation, Chris had asked him. I don't know if Chris had asked him a very specific question when we were meeting with him or if it just kind of came out. But Gene had said in this particular meeting that he had never said this to me or Chris before. He said that there are two things that he cared about as it pertained to Ohio State. One is that he wanted to leave the place better than he found it. And two, that he wanted to be missed when he left. And we didn't interpret that as like, oh, he's about to leave, right?
Yeah.
And he's foreshadowing to you guys, huh?
Yeah, for sure. And we knew it would come one day, but it wasn't like we thought that was like, oh, that means he's going to leave. But as I look back on it, I was like, yeah, it's probably something that he had been reflecting on recently. And maybe that was kind of his subtle way of letting us know, like, listen, guys, it's almost over for me.
I think he wants you to take over, man. I think you can handle it.
Man,
well, I mean, what else don't you do?
Well, he can't back down from that because he tweeted, who's going to take over for Gene Smith? He quote tweeted our own Big Play teammate here, Chris McNeil, and he said, me. So you can't back down from that.
I know, right? I think sometimes people can't tell when I'm serious and when I'm joking. I mean, I think obviously it would be a fun thing to do, but I think that I was actually thinking about this the other day, like who really can do this job, because this job is much bigger than what people think. I think people, when they think about an athletic director for Ohio State, they talk about football and mostly in basketball, but you're talking about 36 sports at Ohio State, and what he and whoever comes to that job now will have to do to keep those sports afloat in this environment, this NIL environment, this revenue-based beast that we know as a college sport. Not to mention just the mentorship and the leadership institute that he started, and he's also seen. I'm just like, whoa, whoever comes in has some real big shoes to fill.
Yeah, and
I'm not ready for that.
What do you think will be Gene Smith's lasting legacy? For those that have not heard, if you have not heard today, Gene Smith does plan to retire basically at the end of this upcoming academic year. If you look at it like a school year, summer of 2024, he plans to retire. What would you say should be his lasting legacy, or that lasting image, memory of Gene Smith for the impact he had at Ohio State?
Yeah, so I think I liked how you phrased the question. You said should be. I think, but when you first started asking the question, you said what will it be? And I think what it will be is it really depends on who you ask. Mm-hmm. I've actually did some anecdotal research on this today, just looking at different posts, and I think NBC4 posted something on Facebook, and I went and looked at some of their posts, and I was like, whoa. Some people were so happy, and I was just like, okay, that contingency is out there. And then I saw another post on LinkedIn, I guess a different type of crowd, and everybody was like, oh my God, Gene, you're the greatest, and you're going to be missed, So I think it's really, and that's the type of thing that's hard about this type of job. It is political in nature, right? It's almost like asking what's the legacy of a president going to be? It's like, of the United States. It really just depends on kind of who you ask, what their values are, what they care about. If you feel like he should have done something different with Jim Tressel, then maybe you hate him. You know what I mean? Or But if you're looking at it, there are a couple of different perspectives that I look at it. One as, him being an African American man, one of the very few across the country to actually hold that type of position. And the fact that he's lasted, I think, 19, almost going to be 20 years by the time he's retired, through multiple different scandals with coaches, navigated the waters and of college sports and how it's forever changed and continued to grow and expand the university and the conference. And then you look around the landscape of college sports in particular, and you have real institutions like Stanford, for example, who are struggling to figure out what to do next with all this conference realignment. They literally, nobody wants them really, and they don't, as prestigious as they are. So it's kind of like understanding also that, like what he did to make sure the brand never faltered to a point where we became Michigan for what they had become until they beat us the last couple of years. You know what I mean? Like for what we became Florida State or one of these former powerhouses that's no longer that. That's not guaranteed. So for me, I think it's amazing leadership. Did we agree with every single thing that he did? No, but that's not really the point, right?
Who's going to get everything right?
Brand.
That's human nature. That's human nature. We're all going to make mistakes. He's just on a higher platform. And it's interesting that you say those things because, no one's ever going to be perfect. But basically, he is, if you're going to look back at some of the scandals at Ohio State, I mean, what school in the big limelight has not had a scandal? And sometimes even getting around before NIL with some of these guys trying to find a way to make ends meet with just stipends and an academic scholarship. There's still things they need to purchase and all that type of stuff. I mean, these ADs are kind of, from my eyes, they're kind of operating as if they have to look at themselves like a professional sports organization at the amateur level when you're at a big school like the Ohio State University. So I feel like he has navigated that well. And Mekka, I mean, you said Stanford. Stanford is, they don't know where to go, but everyone's looking at conference realignment like with just the football teams. They're not looking at all the other sports, and Stanford has been so successful in all the other sports. And I think a credit to Gene Smith, when I'm scrolling through Twitter, Ohio State athletics, they do a great job, and I know Gene Smith's probably behind it, of highlighting how many great teams they have and when teams are doing well outside of the football and the basketball, the ones that get the money grab and that type of stuff.
Spot on. And then also, one other thing too, just, this is something that maybe people don't know, is some of the things that he's actually done and implemented as it relates to NIL with the other sports, not the big high revenue sports, but developing programs for like a golfer to make money in their hometown, maybe put together a golf clinic in their hometown. Maybe they're not a hero at Ohio State's campus, but in their hometown they are. Putting things together like that, programs like that, to make sure that they're participating in this landscape as well. Those are the things that a lot of people don't know and that they don't talk about. Some people just frankly don't care about it, right? Which is fine too. But for me, those things are very, very important.
Now, you played at Ohio State, and I believe your last year was 2001.
Mm-hmm.
So you literally just missed out on the national championship, didn't you? That's got to be rough, right, man. I don't know. Like, you had fun. Like, don't get me wrong. You've got to play at Ohio State. But, like, I was actually living in South Florida when we won, right in the Florida Keys. Yeah. And all I had to hear about for months on end is how they're just going to destroy us. And rightfully so, they could talk because that team was a damn super team.
Yeah.
What are your...
I think...
Like...
Yeah, so it's crazy. So it's done for a little bit. But honestly, I'm very honest with my career. I only played football 1 year in high school, and I came in as a preferred walk-on. I had a full academic scholarship to Ohio State. I could have gone other places in smaller schools, not like big schools, and played. But I really came to Ohio State for the experience and for the network. I knew I was never going to necessarily touch the field, and that wasn't really the point for it for me. So that being said, even if I had made it that far along, I wouldn't have played. It'd been cool to be on the field and stuff like that, but it wasn't. I was just happy for the guys because I knew obviously a lot of the guys, and for a lot of them, a lot of my teammates, that was their dream. These are kids that have been playing football since they're 8 years old. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the thing that they had always dreamed about. So I was able to kind of reconcile it ultimately that way. I mean, yeah, it would have been cool. Obviously, we know that, but I was really happy for the guys, especially.
Yeah, I had to ask because one of my best friends, he went to OSU right at the same time you did, and he literally graduated your year. And he's like, man, of course, they'll win the national championship after I leave school. I'm like, hey, man, that's your luck, bro. I don't know what to tell you. I was having fun razzing all the Florida people down there. But, I mean, like you said, you're having conversations with the great Chris Carter, who's like one of my all-time greats, and I'm over here listening to you talk about having conversations, jealous. I'm like, man, this dude, he's just talking to Chris Carter on his phone. Like, you can't beat that. That's what you get when you play at Ohio State. That network is huge. Even if it's not sports, it's anything.
Yeah, we're just building our network now, Jay.
Yeah.
Like, Mecca's got a much bigger network already than us.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think you're spot on with that. Like, so quick story on Chris. So Chris and I are actually business partners now, and full time. And what's amazing about that is, like I said, I was a walk-on. I was the lowest on the team. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't.
You were a soccer player, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
Kevin is the soccer player here.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yeah. So like, that network and kind of that fraternity that you come into. Some people will treat you like the walk-on forever, right? But most guys don't. And Chris and I, we're not even anywhere close to the same generation or whatever. So I didn't know him when I was there, and I didn't really kind of meet him until much later on, just when I was doing like some of the Jew stuff and some of the other stuff with Ohio State. But even then, we didn't know each other that well. But I'm gonna tell you a quick story. So last year, I was in Dubai with my family, visiting. Like a couple of different things. We've been out there a couple of times, and we have some connections out there. So we go. I think that was my third time going, and I posted on Twitter that I was in Dubai, and Chris sees it, and he sends me a message and said, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to be in Dubai tomorrow." What? Like, can I curse on this show, by the way, or no? I'm like, what the heck? How is that possible? It's not even like I said, like London, like Dubai. You're going to be in Dubai tomorrow at the same time. So he's like, yeah, I'm hosting a wealth management conference. I want you to come as my guest, meet some people, stuff like that. So I was like, all right, cool. So literally the very next day, and for the next like 2 or 3 days after that, I was with him and his brother. And, they started telling me everything that they were doing. And he was transitioning out of TV into a lot of other things in business. But before I left there, he was like, look, I need you to be my business partner. And I was like, all right. And I was like, well, let's see what that looks like. Because, I've been an entrepreneur since 2007. I worked at a big law firm when I graduated, and then I left, and I've been on my own. I've done different things, but I've never actually worked officially like with somebody like that.
Oh, I read your wiki, dude. Like, it'd be easier to tell you what you didn't do.
Yeah.
Than tell you what you did do.
What don't you do? Yeah. It's really the main question. That's what we've been building to this whole time, Mecca. What don't you do?
Well, I don't get scared easily. I'll tell you that. That's one thing I don't do. So I definitely try new things, and I think that's kind of how I got. But anyway, long story short, that's how that relationship developed. But again, back to the original part of the conversation, which was ultimately the network at Ohio State was what really kind of made it come full circle, and so this is 20 something years later, and it's still showing its face. So yes, spot on point there with the network thing.
And speaking of Chris Carter, I know you got a chance to be down in Canton during Hall of Fame weekend. What was that experience like, and what were you guys, of course, as business partners, I'm sure you guys were able to kind of network with some other people down there. What was that whole experience like? Because just from TV, it looks prestigious, but being there has to be a whole different animal, different experience.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. So last year was the first year I got to go with him, and now it's just going to be an annual thing. Because yes, we're business partners, but we're also friends. We get along really, really well. So we just go and hang out, and there are different events there. So they have like, the official ceremony, they have a dinner, they have a party, a private party at the hotel. They won't even let hotel guests come in the lobby, people who are staying there for their party. Yeah, it's nuts like that. Like, so you go in there and it's every Hall of Famer that you could imagine, like last year, LT, Jerry Rice, just hanging out with these guys. It's crazy. Emmett Smith, Warren Sapp. So we're, a lot of times, even in the downtime, there's the hotel, the DoubleTree, and there's like camps of people outside adults mostly who with helmets and cards just waiting for them to come out of the hotel, praying that somebody will stop and sign stuff. So it's but to get in that hotel, you can't even just get in. But on downtime, it would just be all chilling there, like sitting there, Bruce Smith, John Randall, just cracking. It's crazy. Like for me, I don't want to say I don't feel like something I'll ever get used to, right? Because that's like not the right terminology. But I think obviously I'm comfortable in that environment. I've been around people for like that for a while, but sometimes I still do pinch myself and be like, holy shit, I was just talking to Bruce Smith for 10 minutes. And I remember growing up and watching him in awe. I remember I had Jerry Rice on my wall. I had Lawrence Taylor on my wall. And literally, I have pictures of it from when I was 10. And I'm literally sitting there talking to them. They're talking to me like I'm a real human being. I'm like, holy, like, where am I? You know, so there's a little bit of that. And then Saturday night, we went to Darrelle Revis's. So they have like the induction. And then Saturday night for the new guys who get inducted, most of them have their own kind of private party somewhere else in the city. So Darrelle Revis had his and I had known him from New York when I lived in New York. I actually used to do parties with Darrelle. So just coincidentally, we ended up going to his party, which was like a country club. And that was awesome. And then Rondé Barber had a party that we didn't make it over to, but like CeeLo Green performed, and I think Russ, if I'm not mistaken, performed. So it's fun. It's a whole weekend of fun. There's not a ton of business getting done. It's really just networking, mingling, and having fun.
Is there anything you can tell us that you're willing to share or are able to share about Darrelle Revis's party? I only ask that because being in the industry, and of course we have Joe Thomas, former Cleveland Brown, goes in the Hall of Fame, heard stories, and like he was doing a bunch of interviews and told this story about how they had a tattoo artist at his party, and his grandma, who they call Grandma Martini or Granny Martini because she loves martinis, with her medicine she should only be taking, I guess, like, you know, only drinking like one martini. She had a few and then went and got a tattoo. What was Darrelle Revis's party like?
So I don't have anything that cool, but I think so if you know Revis, he has Revis Island, which is his brand. So the way they actually did the party was they set it up like it was very Hawaii themed. So you walk in, you get one of those things they put across your neck. Like literally, you have like two like women greeting you that put those things over your neck, right, as you walk in. So everybody gets that. And then they had a full performance with a whole like Hawaiian inspired dance, like 20 girls that were dancing, and then the guys from literally who were from Hawaii, I found out later, doing the whole fire thing. And like,
that reminds me of SeaWorld. They used to have those dancers all the time come out. I loved them, dude.
Right. Yeah. So that was cool. I don't have anything probably as cool as the story you told, but that was cool.
No,
so
granny's getting tattoos.
Hey, I'm only I'm only aggregating the story. I'm sure that there's plenty of stuff. A lot of those parties that people aren't, just stays where those parties are. Mekka, we can't thank you enough for coming on. I gotta ask you before you get off. Well, two final things. I'm gonna let you plug your music at the end here because I've been listening to a few of your songs and that stuff kind of gets me hyped. But Ohio State football this year, new quarterback will be at the helm, whether it's Kyle McCord or who is it? Brown, I believe.
Devin Brown.
Yeah, Devin Brown. So prospects for this year when you're breaking in a new quarterback, but you have this talent on the outside, talent defensively, talent all over the place. Does this team finally take another step this year, and do they get this now stupid monkey of that team up north off their back?
Yeah. So I think, and I'd like to keep plugging Chris, but we were literally talking about this earlier today too. And I think this is where coaching really matters, right? A lot of people talk about talent and obviously talent matters, but this is where coaching matters because whether it's Devin or it's Kyle, this is a new guy who has not been in these situations before.
Yeah.
Right. And but you look back on Haskins, you look back on Justin Fields, you look back on Stroud. And I'm not saying that any of these guys are those guys, but they're all kind of coming into the same situation. Didn't have much experience, came in, we didn't know what to think, and they got coached up really to all become first round picks. Right. So I think this is where, and these guys are all stud talents, highly recruited guys. It's not like these are just random dudes that were just like hoping Ryan Day can coach up.
Yeah.
So when I say it comes down to coaching, I think there are going to have to be some serious adjustments made to accommodate for the fact that these guys haven't played and they're inexperienced. So that means running the ball more, which I think a lot of Ohio State fans are going to want to see anyway, right? I think that means putting them in, situations where they can get the ball out quick into their playmakers' hands and not having to, make big throws down the field, not getting them in third and long situations and stuff like that. Like really controlling and managing the game. We may win games 21-13 this year instead of 58 to 43.
Yeah.
So but I do, obviously we have the personnel, including the quarterback position, to where we can beat anybody. If you look at Stetson Bennett or some other quarterbacks from Alabama that have won in the past, they weren't necessarily the greatest, but they still it reminds you that this is a very much of a team game. On the defensive side of the ball, I've been hearing good things about the D-line. I heard they're just nasty, and I've heard that there's a substantial improvement in the defensive backfield. And then our linebackers are also showing up too. And then we have some young guys that are Sonny Styles, CJ Hicks, these guys that are going to come in and be impact players. So I'm hopeful that our defense will also, take some of the load off of the offense that we didn't really see last couple of years. But yeah, we have the chance to be as good as anybody. And really is going to come really at the end of the day, when you're talking about the team up north and beyond, it's just going to be coaching.
Yeah.
We have the talent, we can win multiple different ways. But then it's going to come into in-game situations. What are we doing in those critical situations in the game, and how are we managing the game? Certain games, are we willing to adjust the style to the game that's being played, or are we still going to try to fit a square peg into a round hole? Those are the things that remain to be seen. But I think we have a chance to be as good as anybody.
And I love that you brought up Stetson Bennett, because this is a guy that's he's not a first-round NFL draft pick, but he was smart at the quarterback position to get the ball in the hands of the projected first.
Greg Krenzel won a national championship.
Yes.
He even made it a career in the NFL by just managing the game the correct way.
Yeah.
And
I'm not downplaying Stetson Bennett or anything like that, but a lot of these guys at Ohio State are being coached up to be first-round draft picks. But in order to win at the college level, you need that person to kind of bring it all together and get the ball in these playmakers' hands, lead this team. And if Kyle McCord or Devin Brown does that, I think that's what's going to be a big factor in this team going forward.
They'll have the weapons.
Yes, they will have the weapons.
Yeah. What I don't want, last thing on that, what I don't want, and I don't think this will happen, but what I don't want is a 2 quarterback thing. I think we just need to get somebody.
I can't stand it.
I hate that.
Yes.
If you got 2 quarterbacks, you ain't got no quarterbacks.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Well, Mekka, again, thank you so much for coming on. We always allow our guests at the end to plug away. I know that you have music out there, whatever you want. Who's ever watching right now, if people aren't following you, how they can follow you, get your music, or what they can do to connect with you, plug away, please.
Sure. Well, sure. So I have a new single called "Carry It On" in video that just was released last month. It's really a song about legacy and the importance of legacy. It's an anthem, but it also has a message to it, which is how I like to leave a lot of my music. So definitely check that out on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. Check out the video on YouTube. Across all platforms, we crossed 500,000 streams, views, and plays like last week, I think. So we had a billboard up in the city in Columbus, which was pretty cool. So definitely check that out. And then just, hit me up on social media at Mekka Don Music and let me know. I want to hear people's Buckeye takes and Browns takes also. I'm curious to see how people are feeling going into the season. And then the last thing is that Homage and I are talking about coming back, doing a juice shirt this year, or some type of bringing back juice for this year. So I want people to on social media let me know their thoughts about that too, what they think, if they think it makes sense, if they want to see it, if there's certain things they want to see. I'd love to hear from people on that too. So.